In this video, what I want to do is explore some brief insights that Murray Bowen learned in his research. Now, he was a psychiatrist from the mountains of East Tennessee, but while he started off there, he worked at the National Institutes of Health in the D.C. area and at the MCV Hospital in Richmond, Virginia. Eventually, he became what is known as kind of a parent of the Georgetown Center for Family Practice in the DC area. Now, while Bowen was at NIH, he worked with persons who were institutionalized with a variety of psychiatric disorders. And he observed that these persons seemed to respond well to treatment while they were in that setting, but when they returned home, when they returned to the real world of their family and friends, they often experienced what he called a relapse. Now, this observation led Bowen to experiment with a new approach to the treatment of his patients. This new approach was really a shift in thinking, and he began to operate off a new set of assumptions. He asked this: what would happen if we moved the entire family? That is, what would happen if we moved from treating one individual member of the family, to treating the entire family as a unit? And based on this question, Bowen briefly experimented with the concept of institutionalizing the whole family unit so that he could observe the patterns, the processes, rules, and the roles firsthand. Now, this practice, as you can imagine, was short lived, but it did lead Bowen to some very intriguing insights. In these families, he often found that the sick person, who he referred to as the identified patient, often played a very unique role in that or in their family system. And often that person took on the anxiety for or on behalf of the entire family unit. When the IP got better, the functioning of the entire family was out of balance. So if a single person was taken out of their family and institutionalized, they began to function better in an institutionalized environment. But once they went back into their family system after they went home, the family system begins to operate in a particular way to cause the symptoms to resurface in the identified patient. So when the identified patient got better, the functioning, how this family system operated, gets out of balance. The response, and often an unconscious response, was that the other members of the family acted to the sick one or reacted to the sick one to force them back into how they were before the treatment. This is often referred to as sabotage. In other words, the system sort of needed a crazy person or a person who was not functioning or functioning in a particular way, particular roles and rules, um, to reestablish the precious balance, the homeostasis of the system. Now, the institutionalization of an entire family is just not practical, not a practical strategy at all. So Bowen shifted to a different approach in his work with families. When an IP, an identified patient, the sick one, was referred to Bowen, he would do extensive work, interviews. He would use a product, instrument called a genogram, and he would get a great deal of information about the entire family. Then he would select one or two persons in the family who seemed to be the most mature, most rational, or most willing, or the most desperate for change. And instead of counseling the IP, what Bowen would do is coach the healthy person or the healthy persons to explore the dynamics of the family system, to name the rules of the game, and then often to intentionally break those rules, that is, upset the balance, change the homeostasis in order to move the balance to a different place, that is, to a different type of functioning. By working with one or two individuals within the system, what happened is the whole system changed. Now, it's important here to note that this mature individual does not will change in others. He or she simply worked on the ways in which they functioned within that system, avoiding both active and passive sabotage, and in the end, changes the entire family. Now, I want to note two paradigm shifts here. The first one is this: from treating the sick one to coaching motivated one. And then number two, from getting bogged down in symptoms to addressing processes. So, number one, from treating the sick one to coaching a motivated one. And number two, from getting bogged down in symptoms to addressing processes.